Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cha Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, the descriptions of the characteristics of King Puranjana. Text number 32 onwards. Naraduvacha itam Puranjanam nari yachmanam adhirvat abhyanandat tam viram hasanti vir mohita. Narada continued, My dear king, when Puranjan became so attracted and impatient to touch the girl and enjoy her, the girl also became attracted by his words and accepted his request by smiling. By this time, she was certainly attracted by the king. So Narad Muni is speaking to King Prachin Barhishat and telling the story about King Puranjan, which actually is King Prachin Barhishat or any living entity himself. By this incident, we can understand that when a man is aggressive and begins to woo a woman, the woman becomes attracted to the man. This process is described in the Bhagavatam as Punsa Striya Mithuni Bhava Metam. This attraction is enacted on the platform of sexual life. Thus, the sex impulse is a platform of material engagement. This conditional life, the platform of material sense enjoyment, is a cause of forgetfulness of spiritual life. In this way, a living entity's original Krishna consciousness becomes covered or converted into material consciousness. Thus, one engages in the business of sense gratification. So, this engagement or impulse just makes one forget about spiritual life. That's why it's very important, very, very important to control oneself. And all our practices, eating habits, diets, associations, basically when they help us. They help us in controlling the sex impulse or getting into sex activity or enjoyment. So one has to be careful. Na vidam vayam samyak kartaram purusharishab atmanascha parasyapi gotram nam chayat kritam. The girl said, O best of the human beings, I do not know who has begotten me. I cannot speak to you perfectly about this, nor do I know the names or the origin of the associates with me. The living entity is ignorant of his origin. He does not know why this material world was created, why others are working in this material world, and what the ultimate source of this manifestation is. No one knows the answers to these questions, and this is called ignorance. By researching into the origin of life, important scientists are finding some chemical compositions or cellular combinations, but actually, no one knows the original source of life within this material world. The phrase Brahma Jigyasa is used to indicate an inquisitiveness to know the original source of our existence in this material world. No philosopher, scientist, or politician actually knows where from we have come, why we are here struggling so hard for existence, and where we will go. Generally, people are of the opinion that we are all here accidentally, and that as soon as these bodies are finished, all our dramatic activities will be finished and we will become zero. Such scientists and philosophers are impulseless and voidists. In this verse, the girl is expressing the actual position of the living entity. She cannot tell Puranjan her father's name because she does not know from where she has come. Nor does she know why is she present in that place. She frankly says that she does not know anything about all this. This is the position of the living entity in the material world. Now, the girl represented intelligence. So, even the material intelligence has no idea. We don't know nothing about our position, about our origin, about our purpose of being here. We don't know anything. There are so many scientists, philosophers, and big leaders, but they do not know where from they have come. Nor do they know why they are busy within this material world to obtain a position of so called happiness. In this material world, we have very many nice facilities for living, but we are so foolish that we do not ask who has made this world habitable for us and has arranged it so nicely. Everything is functioning in order, but people foolishly think that they're produced by chance in this material world and that after death they will become zero. They think that this beautiful place of habitation will automatically remain. So this is the ignorance of the scientists or the philosophers or the politicians or whoever, because we don't know where we have come from. But that doesn't mean we just appeared out of by chance. Nothing happens by chance. Even this meeting does not happen by chance. We have to arrange it. And the big scientists, their wonderful Nobel Prizes they get, and they get so many titles behind their name and the degrees. For doing what? Darwin's theory, nonsense theory. Everything happens by chance, and everybody follows it. What kind of philosophy is that? It's just like we have this Bhagavad Gita, or let's not talk about Bhagavad Gita. Let's talk about, say, Oxford Dictionary. It's just like saying all of a chance, everything came together in that dictionary. All the words came together, and it became a book. It just happened by chance. Nobody made it. How is it possible? So if a book cannot happen by chance, how can the whole creation with so much of variety can happen by chance? So everything happens by design for a particular purpose. So human life is there to find out that purpose. Otherwise, we are just living like animals. And so many, 99% of population they just take birth like animals, live like animals, and die like animals. That's all happens. Ihadya santam atmanam vidamna tataha param yeneyam nirmita vira puri sharanam atmanah. Oh, great hero, we only know that we are existing in this place. We do not know what will come after. Indeed, we are so foolish that we do not care to understand who has created this beautiful place for our residence. This lack of Krishna consciousness is called ignorance. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is called prabhavas tavad abhodha jata. Everyone is born ignorant. The Bhagavatam therefore says that we are all born ignorant within this material world. In our ignorance, we may create nationalism, philanthropy, internationalism, science, philosophy, and so many other things. The basic principle behind all this is ignorance. What then is the value of all this advancement of knowledge if the basic principle is ignorance? Unless a person comes to Krishna consciousness, all of his activities are defeated. This human form of life is especially meant to dissipate ignorance, but without understanding how to dissipate ignorance, people are planning and building many things. After death, however, all of this is finished. So So everybody is busy, every country is busy making so many things. They call it name of advancement. But an advancement of an ignorant person is of no value. What is it going to do? It's not going to bring about happiness or real progress in life. It's just going to bring about more destruction. That's all. So the real advancement is of advancement of consciousness. To get the answers of the basic questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Where do I come from? Who's God? What's my relationship with God? If those questions are not answered, then whatsoever advancement we have made, whether we have big buildings and nuclear weapons and hospitals and technology, what is the real use? Suppose there are a bunch of mad people. Mad people are called ignorant because they don't know what they're doing. And they invent bunch of things. And what they use it for, they just use it for themselves, to amuse themselves, to make themselves happy. But what is the point in using that? The sane person will just look at that invention, look at those inventions and will say, this is crazy. What is the use? What's the point behind all this? But this is what the whole world is going crazy after. Once Prabhupada was in Detroit, and he was invited because Ambrish Prabhu, who was one of the owners of Ford Company. So the Ford Company people invited Srila Prabhupada because Ambrish Prabhu was initiated by Prabhupada. And they took him to the racing track where Ford cars are tested at very high speed. So they were showing Prabhupada the power of the Ford cars and what horsepower and how fast they can go. And Prabhupada looked at it for a while, and then the manager who was explaining all this, Prabhupada said, a dog is running on 4 legs and you're running on 4 wheels. What's the difference? And if we think about it philosophically, really there is no difference. Just because we got 4 wheels with a fancy car, so many gadgets in the car and so many features, advanced features, but we are basically running, just like a dog is running on 4 legs for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That's all. And since we are running faster on these cars, we're getting more implicated by doing these things faster. So ultimately, it's the realization, self-realization, Krishna consciousness. That is what is the most important aspect of life. Otherwise, other than that, it's basically is of no value. And it's just going to entangle us more and more in karmic reactions. That's all. Ete sakhaya sakhyume nara naryascha manada suptayam mai jagarti nagoyam palyan purim. My dear gentlemen, all these men and women with me are known as my friends, and the snake, who always remains awake, protects this city even during my sleeping hours. So much I know. I do not know anything beyond this. Puranjan inquired from the women about those 11 men and their wives and the snake. The women gave a brief description of them. She was obviously without full knowledge of her surrounding men and women and the snake. As stated before, the snake is a vital force of the living being. This vital force always remains awake, even when the body and the senses become fatigued and do no work. Even in the state of unconsciousness, when we sleep, the snake or the life force remains intact and awake. Yeah, if the life force is not there, then no matter what kind of body we have, we're gonna just die. Consequently, we dream when we sleep. When the living entity gives up this material body, the vital force still remains intact and is carried to another material body. This is called transmigration or change of the body, and we have come to know this process as death. Actually, there is no death. The vital force always exists with the soul. And when the soul is awakened from so-called sleep, he can see his 11 friends or the active senses and the mind with the various desires, wives. The vital life force remains. Even during our sleeping hours, we can understand by virtue of a breathing process that the snake lives by eating the air that passes within this body. Air is exhibited in the form of breathing, and as long as breath is there, one can understand that a sleeping man is alive. Even when the gross body is asleep, the vital force remains active and alive to protect the body. Thus, the snake is described as living and eating air to keep the body fit for life. So, the snake is a vital force within the body, and it feeds on 5 kinds of life air: prana, pan, dan, saman, and vayam, something like that. So, but all this design, everything is designed by the Lord. So that everything works so perfectly. Even the body, when the body is sleeping, the vital force is awake. And that's what keeps the body going. Dishtiyagato asi bhadram te gramyan kaman abhipsase udvahishyami tanste aham swabandhu abhirindam arindama. O killer of the enemy, you have somehow or other come here. This is certainly great fortune for me. I wish all auspicious things for you. You have a great desire to satisfy your senses, and all my friends and I shall try our best in all respects to fulfill your desires. The living entity comes down into this material world for sense gratification, and his intelligence, represented by the women, gives him the proper direction by which he can satisfy his senses to their best capacity. In actuality, however, intelligence comes from the Super Soul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he gives full facility to the living entity who has come down to this material world. So this intelligence given by the Supreme or Super Soul, but it depends upon our independence. Then he gives the intelligence either to try to enjoy the material world or try to come back to him. Those who are on the spiritual path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-brashed. So those who are irresolute in the spiritual path, their intelligence is many-brashed because it's always going either here or here or there or here. They cannot decide what actually they want. But those who are on the spiritual path, they are fixed because they know what they want. When a devotee is advancing towards spiritual realization, his only aim is the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He does not care for any other material or spiritual activity. King Puranjan represents the ordinary living entity, and the woman represents the ordinary living entity's intelligence. Combined, the living entity enjoys its material senses, and the intelligence supplies all paraphernalia for his enjoyment. As soon as he enters the human forms, the living entity is entrapped by a family tradition, nationality, customs, etc. These are all supplied by the Maya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the living entity, under the bodily conception of life, utilizes his intelligence to the best capacity in order to satisfy his senses. So this little bit developed intelligence that the human form, in the human body we have, because it is material intelligence, materially inclined, we just want to enjoy this body or things related to this body, or we create things for this body's pleasure. That's all we are doing. And here in the material world, if somebody does that to a better degree than others, he is considered very intelligent, especially in Kali Yuga. This is the benchmark in Kali Yuga is just, you got to have more money. And if you have more money, means people think because you are intelligent, that's why you got more money. And then even if you basically you have no values in your life, but money brings all the values. Money brings all the followers. Money brings all the awards and whatever you want. And people will just listen to you, no matter what you say. Oh, he is very intelligent. And if there's a poor person, nobody would bother to listen to him. Somebody, when Prabhupada was busy constructing the Mayapur temple, and he was guiding his disciples, and so much of money was coming from America for the construction of the Mayapur temple. So somebody asked Prabhupada over there, journalist asked, why, Swamiji, why you want to build such a big temple? Why you want to take up such a project of building such a huge temple? So Prabhupada was in the field at that time, and probably morning walk or sometime, and the journalist was asking questions over there. So Prabhupada, very dramatically, he put his cane in the ground. He stuck it in the ground, at the last end, and he just like took some dirt and threw it, and he said, I can sit here and do my bhajan in a small hut or even under a tree. I don't need this huge temple for myself. But if we don't have a big temple, how would the people come? How would they realize that there's a beautiful temple and we have to go and take darshan? Otherwise, the people won't come. I don't need it. So that's what it is. If some Swamiji is sitting in some cave or under a tree, how many people will go and listen to him? But at the same time, we have to understand these temples are not for our glorification or comfort. This is for preaching only, or for Krishna's service. But I mean, of course, this is devotees. So devotees' intelligence is obviously highly developed. But in general, just a person, if he is rich or if he has some good position, people would be lining to listen to him. They would be lining up. Even if whatever he has to say, it will be all nonsense, complete nonsense. But this is what the system is right now. And the intelligence that the person uses to make that money, that is considered, oh, you are the Mahabharata. Imam tvam adhitishthasva purim navamukhim vibho mayopani tan grihan kama bhogan shatam samaha. My dear Lord, I have just arranged the city of 9 gates for you so that you can have all kinds of sense gratification. You may live here for 100 years and everything for your sense gratification will be supplied. Dharmartha kama mokshanam dara samprapti hetva. The wife is a cause of all kinds of success in religion, economic development, sense gratification, and ultimately salvation. When one accepts a wife, it is to be understood that he is being helped in his progressive march towards liberation. In the beginning of life, a person is trained as a brahmachari and is then allowed to marry a suitable girl and become a householder. If one is thoroughly trained in household life, he finds all facilities for human life: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Everything is there if it is executed according to regulative principles. So this is real Grihastha ashram. But nowadays it's all, mostly it's Grihimedi, where people don't worry about liberation. The only thing goes on is religion, little bit, economic development, and sense gratification. That's the goal of life. Khao pio jio. But that is a perverted intelligence. But the real intelligence can be there. That's what Prabhupada says. When one accepts a wife, it is to be understood that he is being helped in his progressive march towards liberation. So that is why Vivaha is called a sanskar. Vivaha sanskar. So sanskar means to activities done for our purification of our consciousness. But unfortunately in Kali Yuga, everything is topsy-turvy. Everything. So these, of course, when you read the shloka and the translation, materially they're so nice. But when we read Prabhupada's purport, Prabhupada really hammers it big time. The real purport, the real meaning of these verses. And then he wants to bring the complete detachment. So anyway, we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Here, when I am in Patna, so there is a मतलब यहाँ पे लोग ना मतलब आंवले का पूजा करते हैं. मतलब बिहार में इन जनरल लोग जो है ना आंवले को सुबह में उठ करके आंवले को जल देते हैं पूरे कार्तिक महीने में. तो उसका क्या सिग्निफिकेंस है प्रभु जी?
What I have heard, I have never read in Prabhupada's books, कि Amla, Tulsi, and banyan tree, they don't come in 8,400,000 species. That's what I have heard. So that's why they do that.
तो मतलब वही मुझे नहीं समझ में आ रहा था क्योंकि यहाँ पे सब लोग मतलब मैंने बोला कि तुलसी पे करते हैं, जल देते हैं और उनका सेवा करते हैं, तुलसी सेवा कार्तिक में कर सकते हैं. पर फिर यहाँ पे मैंने देखा कि छोटी-छोटी बच्चियां भी गांव में तो कार्तिक में आंवले को दीपक दिखाती हैं, परिक्रमा करती हैं. मुझे नहीं समझ में आ रहा था, मैंने कभी पढ़ा भी नहीं है.
पढ़ा मैंने भी नहीं है, मैंने बस सुना है. So I don't know.
सही बात. Thank you.
So maybe amla is good for material body. For body, it's very good. But how does it help spiritually? I don't know.
प्रभु जी, जो कार्तिक महीने की कथा होती है उसमें इसका जिक्र आया हुआ है, आंवले का, तुलसी का और बैनियन ट्री का।
ओके,
वो मैं ना पोस्ट कर दूंगी, मुझे एग्जैक्टली पता नहीं है, मैं अभी पहुंची नहीं वहाँ पे। I'll post
ओके,
that,
या
जी।
पोस्ट करो तो अच्छा है।
हाँ हाँ,
विल
post
आल्सो लर्न।
हाँ, वहाँ उसमें ना कार्तिक महीने की रोज जो कथा होती है सुबह, उसमें आता है, एक चैप्टर आता है इसके बारे में, जिसमें जालंधर और तुलसी वृंदा का जिक्र है। उसी में आता है कि वो, मेरे को एग्जैक्टली मतलब टूटा फूटा ही पता है, बट मैं पोस्ट कर दूंगी उसको ना, I'll read it and I'll post it.
ओके माता, ओके, थैंक यू।
Thank you.
थैंक यू माता।
Thank you, thank you, Mata.
Thank you, Mata. Okay, so I guess we can stop here. You all have a wonderful and safe day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.